Prime Minister, Your Majesty, Secretary General, ladies and gentlemen, it's a very special moment, I think, for all of us and particularly for me, to be here this morning and to be part of a very special call to action on the Millennium Development Goals. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon and Prime Minister Gordon Brown have invited us here today to witness and to join in a commitment to action on the Millennium Development Goals. We know that the world is not on track to meet the Millennium Development Goals. The World Economic Forum's report estimated that the world was dedicating only 30% of the effort needed to be on track toward meeting the goals. As a global community, we are not making progress fast enough. An unprecedented effort is needed to increase our impact, engaging all regions and actors, including, and I emphasize, the private sector. For this reason, the Forum is facilitating public-private partnerships initiatives in nearly all of the MDGs areas, including poverty, hunger, education, gender equality, health, environment, and global partnership. Those partnerships engage many of the top corporate members present here, and together with other stakeholders, we hope to really live up to our mission to improve the state of the world. We will now have a photo opportunity, and afterwards there will be a short statement of everybody involved.
Okay, I think we've done enough. Thank you very much. If the panelists could sit down, please, in the seats, and other ladies and gentlemen, if you could leave, that would be very kind. No, they just... And if I could ask the ladies and gentlemen of the press, the photographers to please keep down here. Can I have some microphones? Ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. That went rather more smoothly than I had actually anticipated. I'd like to now ask each of the panelists in turn to come and make a few introductory remarks, a few brief remarks, starting first with Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, who's going to talk about the Special UN Summit on MDGs. Secretary General.
Mr. President, Mr. Prime Minister, Your Majesty, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. A few years ago, in Davos, the force of nature, known as Bono, drew an attention-grabbing analogy. Watching 10,000 children die every day from preventable diseases and doing nothing, he said, is something like standing and watching as the train rolled off to the Auschwitz. Bono joins us here today, as you can see, on this very distinguished panel of global leaders. We are here to say one thing, loud and clear: not on our watch. We saw progress last year on the great issues of our day, climate change in particular. Protecting our planet and its people, our global public good, requires all our best efforts. We should be the champions of the weak, the disadvantaged, those who have been excluded from the mainstream international community. I speak here of those who are most vulnerable to climate change, those who suffer the most grinding poverty. And so I say, let this year be the year we rededicate ourselves to their needs. Let 2008 be the year of the bottom billion. They are the forgotten ones and the nearly 1 billion left behind by global growth. We are at the midpoint of a great campaign to world poverty, to end world poverty, set forth in the Millennium Development Goals. Too many nations have fallen behind. We need fresh ideas and fresh approaches. It is unacceptable that one child dies of hunger every day, every 5 seconds. It is unacceptable that for 2/3 of the world, a glass of ordinary drinking water is a luxury. It is again unacceptable that 1 million people die from malaria every year. That is why I'm launching, together with the global leaders, a new initiative. This September, during the General Assembly, the United Nations will host a high-level meeting on the Millennium Development Goals. We will place special emphasis on Africa. We'll bring together world leaders and together demand action. We must re-energize the world's commitment to the Millennium Development Goals. Last year, we used a similar forum to galvanize world action on climate change. This year, we will do the same for the bottom billion. This is a sacred cause. The fight against global poverty and human suffering is a moral imperative. This is the year to act, all of us together. Thank you very much for your cooperation and participation.
Mr. Secretary General, Mr. Prime Minister, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Let me express first my appreciation to have the opportunity to rededicate ourselves and renew our total commitment to the achievement of the Millennium Development Goals. For us in Africa, the achievement of the Millennium Development Goals, in fact, is a sacred duty. I'm happy to report that most African nations have been placing in place policies to ensure economic growth. We have put in place structures that will ensure good governance through various initiatives of the African Union, NEPAD, and the African Peer Review Mechanism. Yet, in all the regions of the world, it is in Africa that we stand a real risk of not meeting the Millennium Development Goals by the year 2015. There are various and serious challenges in meeting the MDGs in Africa. Very clearly, one of the major challenges is the infrastructure gap. Infrastructure is one of the key enablers for the attainment of the Millennium Development Goals. And also, human resource capacity is also another enabler for the attainment of Millennium Development Goals. Therefore, I welcome this new initiative and this new partnership and compact from the global community to declare the year 2008 a year for renewed effort and initiative to achieve and work towards the achievement of the Millennium Development Goals. We in Africa and in Nigeria in particular, we are going to apply ourselves and deploy resources to target the particular objectives of the MDGs, and we'll work day and night with renewed energy and renewed commitment to ensure that we meet the MDGs by the year 2015. For us in Africa, this is going to be a great challenge, but we are resolved and will work hard to achieve it. Thank you very much.
It is right that here in Davos, where we look at the world as it is and how it might be, that we tell the truth, that there is a development and poverty emergency around the world, that if we do not act, we have no chance of meeting the Millennium Development Goals by 2015, and that we must summon everyone who is concerned about this, governments, private companies, NGOs, churches, faith groups, in a call to action to take urgent measures so that we can meet the goals by 2015. We have promised that infant mortality will be cut by 3/4 by 2015. But on present trends, we will not make that happen until at least 2050. We have promised that every child will be in schooling by 2015. But if we do not change the way we act on present trends, we will not achieve that before 2115. And the children of the world cannot wait another century for action. 70 million children do not go to school. 1 in 7 mothers are dying in childbirth in Sierra Leone. 30,000 children are dying avoidably and unnecessarily and suffering every day as a result of our failure to act. 1 billion of the world's people living on less than $1 a day will find things worse this year as a result of rising food prices and rising oil prices. And that is why this summons has got to be to everyone who is concerned. A summons not just to governments, but to every private sector company in the world that thinks it can make a difference and help us change the way we are acting. A summons to every NGO, church group and voluntary organisation to join us in this call. And that's why in May this year we will call a conference of private companies, inviting them to London to discuss what they can do concretely to make a difference to the achievement of the Millennium Development Goals. This matter will be raised at the European Council in June. It will form a major part of the G8 meeting in Japan in July. And then thank you to the UN General Secretary, because by his leadership we will be able to bring the world's attention to the need to meet the Millennium Development Goals at the conference he is organising at the United Nations in September. This is a unique call to action, never made before, to all private sector companies, all NGOs, as well as all governments. And I put the question in the words of a former American president: if not us, who? If not now, when? And if not together, how?
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Your Majesty, if you would like to come to the lectern.
Hopes raised, dreams dashed, promises way, of course. Is this how we want to be remembered? Is this the legacy we want to bequeath to the children of the developing world? We are here today because we all agree the answer is no. We all agree it is time to move from promise to performance. 7 years ago, we made a pledge to the 44 million girls out of school, the 530,000 mothers who die annually at childbirth, the 4 million newborns who die each year, and the 2 million children who perish from preventable diseases every year. To do everything in our power to help them not only survive, but thrive. And Prime Minister Brown has quite accurately called this challenge a development emergency. How could the deaths of so many innocent lives be anything less? Yet the world's response has been too slow, perhaps because it doesn't look like a traditional disaster. There was no drought, no tidal wave, no ground shaking beneath our feet. But just because we cannot send wailing sirens to the scene does not make this crisis any less urgent. It is an emergency. It is unfolding all around us, and it needs our attention right now. Since 2000, we have made some progress. More people are drinking safe water, more vaccines are available to children in need, more mothers are breastfeeding their babies, and more children are getting the education that can set them on the path out of poverty. But there is so much more to do, so many more lives to lift, and so little time to do it. As governments, private sector professionals, NGOs, civil society, individually, we are powerful. Collectively, we are invincible. The world's most vulnerable and innocent citizens are relying on us. Some of them are in my region, and I know that this is an issue, Prime Minister, that you care about very much. This week, Gaza was plunged into further darkness and despair. Gaza's children are crying out for heat, light, food, safety, medical care, and most of all, peace. Already they have lived through more horror, fear, and heartbreak than we can possibly imagine. Broken promises will not help them. Let us put our promises back on track for all the world's children. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gates, if you could make some remarks.
Well, good afternoon. It was about 10 years ago that I started learning about development issues. And as somebody from the private sector, I was looking for the benchmarks. I was looking for the goals. What are the priorities? What does the report card look like? And in fact, it was very difficult to understand. Learning about different UN agencies, different NGOs, different countries and different situations. What came out of this, and how did the world think of itself as either doing well or not doing well? And so I was very excited that the Millennium Development Goals were put together. This is the world's report card in terms of the work we need to do for the most needy. It's a report card where we know already that in some areas we'll get good grades, and in some areas on current trends we will not. And so I think it's very important to highlight these metrics. One thing I was excited about is that my daughter, who's in 6th grade, came home one day and said that when she was being taught about the goals of the world, they had gone through with her the Millennium Development Goals. And so it's really kind of crystallized the idea that the inequities are incredible and allowed us to bring more thinking, more involvement in the creative ideas that will let us achieve these goals. I think this increased involvement and visibility is part of the reason why we were able to achieve in the latest World Bank IDA funding round more commitment by the governments. I think it's part of the reason why the Global Fund had a good fundraising round. I think it's part of the reason why the RED campaign has been able to draw in more companies and do very creative things where people can get involved. There's an element of the Millennium Development Goals where we want businesses to step up. It's not just, of course, it's governments, it's philanthropists, but I think the role of business is an important one. Microsoft is one of many businesses that signed on to these goals and is committed to do what it can do, and we'll look forward to participating in the get-together that Gordon Brown mentioned. The technology sector can do a lot in terms of infrastructure, for healthcare, for literacy, and there's many other sectors stepping forward. All of this fits into the idea that I talked about yesterday called creative capitalism. And in fact, some of the grants that were announced today are about drawing in food companies, giving grants for agriculture that specifically relate to Millennium Development Goal number 1, which is malnutrition. All of these goals are important. I think we are drawing in more people. We can make more progress. So it's important to be part of this endeavor. It's the most important work in the world. Thank you.
Bono, if you'd like to come and make some remarks, please.
The MDGs, even if they were a crap acronym, were the best chance we had at telling the world who we are. I thought it was our generation's moonshot. I thought this was our chance to show what our technological prowess, our financial firepower, our creativity, our moral purpose was capable of. They were a critical path, a yardstick. They gave a clarity that allowed us to see through all the hype and all the guff and the grand announcements and the preening rock stars and the browbeating and the empty promises. You know, we could sort of see a way through. But it looks like this is the moment when our generation gets to draw a line in the sand or snow and stops. Where other generations put a man on the moon, we can't put every kid in school and give them a shot at not just looking across the hill to our prosperity, but being a part of it. Where another generation fought fascism and injustice and prevailed, we fail in our fight against the Anopheles mosquito, which kills 3,000 children a day. While others climbed Everest just because they could, our generation failed to find clean water for those who will die because they can't. For people pissed off with politics, this was a reason to get out of bed in the morning. And they did, by the way. Kumi Naidu, GCAP, Save the Children, Oxfam, lots of people got out of bed. Make Poverty History got out of bed. But here's why I'm pissed off. I'm not pissed off because of a sense of failure. I'm pissed off because of a sense of success. Because we know how to do this. African leadership, combined with debt cancellation, has put 29 million children in school on that continent, which is an extraordinary thing. 2 million Africans are on antiretroviral drugs now, where 5 years ago we were laughed out of it at the thoughts of getting drugs to the farthest reaching corners of that continent. Malaria, no more. We know how to do it, and that's really what's upsetting about this. You know, the good news makes the bad news worse. So it's supposed to be a call to action. But the thing that sort of dawns on me is that this is just a moral compact, isn't it? It's not a legal contract. And that's the problem, really. You know, my advice would be, if you want to take a concrete step, is make that moral compact into a moral contract. Because it's like we're kids in the schoolyard. You promised this. You promised you say you do that. No, I didn't. Yes, I did. No, I didn't. Yes, I did. So I would like to turn our moral compacts into legally binding contracts. And then my advice to the developing world, get a good lawyer and haul our asses into court. So, why is it that the UK is ahead on this? Why is it? It's not just because Gordon Brown cares about this stuff and knows it in depth, which he does. It's because he has a mandate. And here I want to point the finger at myself, or people like me. The truth of it is that in Great Britain, there's a great movement of people who've shown that this is a priority. Polling 5th and 6th, I think, in the last election. Uppermost on the mind of the British electorate. Global health, poverty. Social movements will always win the day. Not rock stars, not politicians. None of us. So I put my faith in the social movement. In France, in Germany, in Italy, in the United States, the One Campaign, something is stirring. And it gives us a chance, our generation, to redeem ourselves. And I'll leave you with famous Irish lyricist Bob Dylan. Come gather round people wherever you roam, and admit that the waters around you have grown. and accept that soon you'll be drenched to the bone. If your time to you is worth saving, then you better start swimming or you'll sink like a stone, for the times they are a-changing.
Thank you, Bono. Mr. Chambers.
Very often in business, we're used to seeing a very motivational leader or an organization like the UN or World Economic Forum outline a goal that you know in your heart is doable, but yet you know is going to fail because you're dependent upon one person or one organization. And time again, we've tried to do this as loose conglomerates to achieve these goals. The United Nations, the entertainment industry, Bono, you, Quincy Jones in 1999 started with programs like NetAid. So what is different this time? Because in business, unless you do something dramatically different, you'll get the same results as before. And it isn't just the ability to catch the imagination that our children have taught us through social networking. It's the power of collaboration to work toward a common goal to accomplish what none of us could do by ourselves. It's having the courage to set a vision that is impossible and then combining the skills that are different for each one of us to achieve those goals. Individuals can make a difference. We as a company have educated 2.4 million young people to get jobs in networking with the UN. But that was transactional. 25% of those were gender diverse. It was only when you come together toward common global education initiatives which the World Economic Forum focused on, whether it was in Jordan or in Egypt or in India, were we successful. This will work. And so for my business counterparts, I want to challenge you. First, it's the right thing to do. Secondly, we cannot do it without you. 4 of the top 5 highest market capitalization companies in the world in terms of high tech, the value in the stock markets, have been together on this for a decade, Bill. And the ability to bring government leaders together, entertainment, the UN and WEF will make a difference this time. The time to act is now. And the only mistake we can make is inaction. Thank you.
I know many of the panelists need to be elsewhere. We have time, I think, for probably just one question. Yes, AP.
Edith Lederer from the Associated Press. As somebody who saw the launch of the Millennium Development Goals, you talk about collaboration being the basis of this. How exactly are you going to, you are all incredibly powerful people, leaders in various fields, how are you going to keep up this collaboration so that it actually makes a global impact? Is there going to be some new super group formed? Are you going to set financial targets? How exactly is it going to work?
Bill Gates on guitar, I'm for that.
Well, I think we're seeing more cooperation between the various UN groups, the NGOs, and businesses because of the Millennium Development Goals, because it's concrete what needs to be done. You know, on malnutrition, we're bringing businesses in that were not involved before. And for each of these goals, we can point to 1 or 2 organizations who really need to take the lead. It's fairly clear inside the UN where that responsibility lies, and they, you know, their reputation is on the line to step up and do these things. I do think some of the gatherings that were discussed here are going to cast light on the shortcomings, are going to draw more people in. I don't think we need a new organization. I think we've got enough organizations. It's just the energy and you know, saying that 7 years is not that long of a period of time, that's going to help us accelerate.
Can I just add that we want every business to look at what it can do from its core work to contribute to the meeting of a Millennium Development Goal. And when we meet in May, and I hope many businesses will come from all over the world to do so, we will look at how in each sector of the Millennium Development Goals, the contribution of businesses, voluntary organisations, faith groups and governments can make the difference. And then I hope that some businesses will lead in particular areas, and it will not simply be governments and not simply be one or two governments. And I hope by the time we then get to the UN special meeting, which thanks to Secretary General Ban has been called for September, that we will be able to present a private and voluntary sector and public sector set of ways forward in each of the goals. You've heard this morning the eloquence of the business leaders, Bill and John, who've talked this morning. You've heard the poetry of Bono. You've heard the commitment of Queen Rania. You've heard the African response that they will reform their governments so that there is open and transparent government. And you've heard that Secretary Ban is ready to lead. I just hope that as a result of what we're saying today, every business represented here will sign up, and then we will be in touch to make sure that the contribution that you can make is both valued and can be part of what I think is the only way we can now achieve the Millennium Development Goals. It depends on us all working together.
Thank you very much. I think we probably have run out of time.
Can I just say one last thing, because
Sure.
it's a very special, I think, moment in time for Davos and people here. I think we have to just point out that this is Bill Gates' last trip to Davos as Microsoft leader, and I think it is an extraordinary thing that this man has not just changed the world once, but has now set aside the next act of his life to change the world again, and I think we should really just mark this moment. So.